You're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting, and suddenly your hands tighten around the steering wheel. Heat rises in your chest as another car cuts you off. What was calm frustration moments ago now feels like white-hot anger. We've all been there, watching our emotions hijack our actions while we stand powerless in the driver's seat. But what if you could pause that reaction? What if, instead of being controlled by emotions, you became the one in control? 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the core of Stoicism, not suppressing emotions, but mastering your response to them. Today, we'll explore practical Stoic techniques used by emperors, philosophers, and modern thinkers alike to transform emotional turbulence into unshakable clarity. These aren't just ancient theories, they're tools you can use the next time life tests your patience. Think of emotional control not as locking your feelings away in a steel vault, but like sailing a boat through rough waves. The Stoics weren't telling you to ignore the storm, they taught you how to adjust the sails. Most people misunderstand this, assuming Stoicism means cold detachment or bottling up emotions. But true Stoic practice isn't about suppression. It's about developing the clarity to recognize which emotions serve you and which ones steer you off course. At the heart of this is the dichotomy of control, one of Stoicism's most powerful tools. It's the simple but profound idea that some things are within our power, like our judgments and reactions, while others, traffic, rude strangers, even our own initial emotional surges, are not. Seneca put it best, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. A missed train or a harsh word only rattles us if we let it, by blurring that line between what we can change and what we must accept. This isn't about dismissing anger or grief as weaknesses. The Stoics saw emotions as signals, not enemies. Imagine frustration as a flashing dashboard light. It's not the problem itself, but an alert urging you to act wisely. When you pause to ask, is this within my control, you shift from reacting to responding. That's the essence of emotional mastery, not silence but choice. Picture this, you're sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, late for an appointment, your foot tapping impatiently on the brake. The car in front of you hasn't moved in minutes. Your first instinct might be to honk, mutter under your breath, or even feel your pulse quicken with frustration. But here's the question Epictetus would ask: what part of this situation can you actually change? The ancient Stoic teacher drew a clear line between what's within our power and what isn't, a concept he called the dichotomy of control. Your thoughts, your focus, your actions. Those belong to you. The traffic light, the driver who cut you off, even the meeting you're late for, those exist outside your command. The suffering begins when we waste energy fighting the uncontrollable instead of directing it toward what we can influence. Let's make this practical. Take a moment right now to list 3 things in your life that feel frustrating but fall into the uncontrollable category. Maybe it's a delayed flight, a coworker's attitude, or even bad weather ruining your plans. Now here's the Stoic shift. Ask yourself, how have I been reacting to this? Are you white-knuckling the steering wheel, or are you taking a breath and redirecting your attention towards something productive, like listening to an audiobook or planning your next move? The key isn't indifference, it's discernment. When you stop resisting the unchanging and start investing in the changeable, you reclaim agency. Epictetus put it bluntly, man is disturbed not by things but by the views he takes of them. That traffic jam won't vanish because you're angry, but your ability to stay calm, rethink your route, or use the time meaningfully, that is power no external circumstance can take from you. One of the most transformative tools in Stoic practice is the ability to step outside your emotions, not to deny them, but to see them with clarity. Marcus Aurelius called this taking the view from above, as if observing your life from a mountaintop. Picture yourself mid-argument when frustration starts clouding your judgment. Instead of getting swept up in the heat of it, imagine floating above the scene, watching it unfold like a neutral observer. That slight shift in perspective changes everything. This technique, called cognitive distancing, doesn't ask you to suppress what you feel. It simply creates space between you and the emotion, so you can ask, is this reaction serving me? Anger might feel justified in the moment, but from a distance, you'll notice whether it's moving you toward resolution or just digging you deeper into conflict. The Stoics believed that emotions aren't facts, they're interpretations, and when you create that mental gap, you regain the power to interpret wisely. Here's how to practice it today. The next time someone cuts you off in traffic or your coffee spills before an important call, pause. Instead of reacting instantly, take a breath and visualize your frustration as if it were happening to someone else. What advice would you give them? Would you tell them to scream or to wipe up the coffee and move on? That's cognitive distancing, seeing the emotion without being owned by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to calmness, the closer he is to strength." Notice he didn't say calmness means no emotions, just that you're no longer at their mercy. Try this today with a minor annoyance. Watch the emotion rise, then step back. You'll realize something profound. You're not your anger, you're the one who chooses what to do with it. Now let's talk about one of Stoicism's most counterintuitive yet powerful tools, Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, it sounds pessimistic. Why dwell on what could go wrong? But here's the twist. The Stoics weren't advocating anxiety or doomsday thinking. They were training resilience by stripping fear of its power to surprise us. Picture this, you're preparing for a high-stakes job interview. Nervous energy hums in your chest. What if you freeze? What if they ask something unexpected? Instead of pushing those thoughts away, the Stoic approach invites you to lean in. Mentally walk through the worst-case scenario. What if I stumble over my words? Acknowledge it. What if I don't get the offer? Sit with that possibility. Seneca put it bluntly, he who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. This isn't about expecting failure. It's about vaccinating yourself against shock. By rehearsing adversity in your mind, you dissolve its ability to rattle you in reality. When you've already faced the fear, it can't ambush you. Here's how to practice this today. Pick an upcoming challenge, a difficult conversation, a presentation, even a first date. Spend 2 minutes imagining the worst that could reasonably happen. Then ask yourself, could I handle this? You'll almost always realize the answer is yes. That's the magic of Premeditatio Malorum. It turns the unknown into the familiar and fear into preparation. The Stoics weren't preparing for misery, they were building emotional armor. As Seneca wrote, the man who has practiced in advance the trials of his future suffers less. Try it. The next time anxiety whispers what if, meet it with even if and watch how much lighter your mind feels. There's a quiet strength hidden in an ancient Stoic principle, one so counterintuitive that it might just change how you experience life's toughest moments. Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's not about passive resignation or plastering on a fake smile when things go wrong. It's about embracing what happens, all of it, with the unshakable belief that every setback, every detour is material for your growth. Centuries after Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action," Nietzsche would echo this idea, calling Amor Fati his formula for greatness. Picture this, you've spent years working toward a promotion, late nights, extra projects, undeniable results. Then the email arrives, someone else got it. Your stomach drops. The first wave is disappointment, maybe even anger. But here's where Amor Fati interrupts the spiral. Instead of asking, why me, you pause and ask, what if this is exactly what I need? Maybe that missed role would have trapped you in a path that wasn't yours. Maybe it's the nudge to start the business you've been dreaming of. The Stoics didn't see fate as a cage, they saw it as a collaborator. This isn't magical thinking, it's tactical reframing. Nietzsche didn't just admire Amor Fati, he lived it. When crippling migraines and failing eyesight threatened his work, he didn't curse his body. He called his suffering a great stimulant to his philosophy. That's the pivot, not denying pain but mining it for meaning. Try this today. Think of a recent disappointment, a rejection, a plan that fell through. Now play out 3 ways this could serve you. Did it free up time, reveal a hidden opportunity, teach you something about your resilience? Amor Fati turns life's plot twists into fuel. As Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Loving your fate isn't surrender, it's claiming authorship of your story. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing the discipline of ascent with freshness and depth. Imagine walking down a quiet street when suddenly a dog barrels toward you, barking wildly. Your body tenses, heart racing, breath shallow, but then you notice the dog is behind a fence. Instantly, your fear evaporates. The bark hasn't changed, but your assent to its threat has. That's the core of the Stoic discipline of ascent, the split-second gap between an external trigger and your internal stamp of approval. Epictetus used this exact metaphor to teach his students. It's not the dog's bark that disturbs you, but your judgment that it's dangerous. Modern psychology echoes this with the reaction vs. response distinction. A reaction is automatic, like slamming your desk when your computer crashes. A response is measured, taking a breath, then troubleshooting. The difference, one is unconscious, the other is chosen. The Stoics didn't pretend emotions vanish. They trained themselves to interrogate impressions before letting them dictate actions. Marcus Aurelius called this the privilege of the rational soul, to hit pause between stimulus and action. Here's how to practice this today. Pick one moment when you'd normally react impulsively, a rude comment, a long line at the store. When it happens, create space. Ask, is this impression true? Is my reaction useful? You're not suppressing emotion, you're vetting it. Like seeing that barking dog behind the fence, you'll start noticing how many threats are just noise. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, famously said progress begins when you correctly use your impressions. That correction isn't denial, it's clarity. The next time anger or anxiety knocks, don't slam the door. Invite it in for questioning. You might find it has far less power than you assumed. Here's your next script segment, designed to flow seamlessly while introducing Stoic journaling with fresh energy and practical steps. Think of your mind as a river, constantly flowing, sometimes muddy with unchecked emotions. Now imagine journaling as the simple act of filtering that water, letting clarity settle in. This was Marcus Aurelius' secret. His meditations wasn't written for fame or philosophy lectures. It was his private anchor, a way to sift through storms and return to reason. And here's the good news. You don't need poetic brilliance or hours of free time to start. Stoic journaling boils down to 3 questions. What happened? How did I react? What would a wiser response look like? Let's break this into practice. Tonight, before bed, try this. Open a notebook and write down one moment today where emotions took the wheel. Maybe a colleague interrupted you in a meeting or plans suddenly cancelled. First, state the facts plainly. What happened? No dramatic storytelling, just the bare events. Next, note your raw reaction, my response. Did you fume silently? Snap back. Finally, channel your inner Stoic. What would someone like Epictetus or Seneca have done differently? This isn't about self-judgment. It's about spotting the gap between impulse and wisdom. Morning journals work differently. Instead of reviewing the past, prep for what's ahead. Ask, what challenges might arise today? How can I meet them with calm and purpose? This 2-minute ritual does what Premeditatio Malorum did for ancient Stoics. It inoculates you against reactivity. The magic isn't in elaborate prose. It's in consistency. Seneca wrote letters to himself daily, not to dwell on problems, but to dissolve them through reflection. Your journal isn't a diary, it's a training ground. Start small, 3 sentences tonight. Like Marcus, you'll soon find that the simple act of putting emotions on paper strips them of their chaos, leaving only what you can work with. Here's your next script segment, flowing naturally from previous content while introducing fresh insights and practical application. There's a peculiar power in zooming out, way out, until the things that consume us shrink into their true proportions. The Stoics called this the view from above, and Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily. Picture Earth from space, a pale blue dot suspended in darkness. Cities vanish into patches of light, oceans blur into single strokes of color. From here, your worries, the missed deadline, the awkward conversation, even the looming crisis lose their grip. Marcus wrote, "Pass then through this tiny fragment of time and spend your final moments in harmony with nature." That's not nihilism, it's liberation. When you see your life against the backdrop of cosmic vastness, what once felt urgent often reveals itself as fleeting. Try this now. Close your eyes and pull your current stressor into focus, maybe a conflict at work or financial pressure. Now mentally rise above it, higher and higher, until you're looking down at your neighborhood, then your continent, then the planet itself. Notice how small the issue becomes against centuries of history, infinite stars, the relentless turn of seasons. This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about contextualizing them. The anger you felt in traffic today won't even be a memory in 5 years. The criticism that stung yesterday, a speck in the grand narrative of your life. The magic lies in the rebound effect. When you return from this mental journey, the problem hasn't vanished, but your relationship to it has. You might even laugh at how tightly you've been clutching it. Ancient Stoics used this to dissolve ego, but modern science confirms its value. Astronauts often report the overview effect, a profound shift in perspective after seeing Earth from orbit. Their petty conflicts fade, replaced by awe and connection. You don't need a rocket to harness this, just the willingness to step back and ask, will this matter in a month? A decade to the universe, Marcus scribbled in his journal. Think of the substance of the whole. All that happens is but a pinpoint in eternity. Next time overwhelm knocks, don't meet it head-on. Rise above it literally and watch how clarity replaces chaos. The storm still rages below, but from this height you'll see it's just weather. There's a quiet revolution happening in how we think about mindfulness, and surprisingly, the Stoics were practicing it centuries before it became a buzzword. While Eastern traditions often emphasize emptying the mind or observing thoughts without judgment, Stoic mindfulness takes a different path. It's not about passive awareness, but active engagement, using reason to anchor yourself in the present moment. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you seek tranquility, do less. Then, with a twist, he added, or more accurately, do what's essential. That's the Stoic difference. Presence isn't just noticing the world around you, it's consciously choosing where to direct your attention. Imagine your daily commute, the honking horns, the crowded subway, the stop and go traffic. Most mindfulness practices might tell you to breathe through the frustration or detach from it. The Stoic approach, engage with purpose. Epictetus advised his students to treat every task, no matter how mundane, as an opportunity to exercise virtue. Instead of zoning out or simmering in irritation, ask, what can I focus on right now that's within my control? Maybe it's listening carefully to a podcast instead of scrolling mindlessly, or using red lights as reminders to check your posture. The goal isn't to escape the moment, but to master it. Here's how to bridge ancient wisdom with modern life. Tomorrow, turn your commute into a Stoic mindfulness lab. For 5 minutes, direct your full attention to one thing you'd normally do on autopilot, steering the wheel, feeling the texture of your coffee cup, or even the rhythm of your steps. When distractions arise, and they will, don't judge them, just gently return your focus like a ship correcting its course. This isn't passive meditation, it's active training for your attention, just as the Stoics intended. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." That's the heart of Stoic mindfulness, not floating above life, but diving into it with clarity, intention, and the quiet discipline to do only what matters. Your commute won't change, but how you move through it, that's entirely yours to shape. The human mind has a peculiar habit. We only truly value what we've got once it's gone. That pang you feel when you misplace your phone, even for a minute, the frantic patting of pockets, the quickened pulse, that's the exact reaction the Stoics harnessed intentionally, not out of fear, but as a tool for clarity. They called it negative visualization, a practice far more transformative than it sounds. Seneca captured its essence when he wrote, "Treat your possessions as if they were on loan from life never owned." Not to breed anxiety, but to awaken appreciation. Try this now. Picture your phone suddenly vanishing, not just misplaced, gone. The contacts, the photos, the notes you didn't back up. Feel that visceral discomfort. Now imagine the relief of finding it. Notice how, for a brief moment, you're flooded with gratitude for something you usually take for granted. That's the power of this exercise. By mentally relinquishing what we rely on, we short-circuit entitlement and reconnect with the joy of simply having. But the Stoics took it further. They didn't just visualize losing objects, they practiced imagining the absence of people, health, even their own lives. Morbid on the surface, perhaps, yet this wasn't pessimism. It was inoculation against taking anything for granted. Epictetus reminded his students, he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. By confronting loss in our minds, we strip it of its ability to paralyze us in reality. Here's how to integrate this today. Before bed, spend 2 minutes mentally letting go of one ordinary blessing: your sight, your morning coffee, the comfort of your bed. Then, upon reclaiming it in your mind, write down 3 specific ways it enriches your life. This isn't just a gratitude list, it's a recalibration of perspective. You'll start noticing how much you overlook in the rush of daily life. The irony: negative visualization doesn't breed sadness, it dissolves it. When you stop assuming everything will always be there, the mundane becomes miraculous. That's why Marcus Aurelius woke each morning telling himself, "You may leave this life today. Let that determine what you do and say, not as a threat but as a compass." The more comfortable we grow with the thought of loss, the more fully we can live without its shadow. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing Apathea with fresh relevance and practical application. Social media erupts, another divisive headline, another flood of hot takes. Your thumb hovers over the keyboard, poised to fire off a reaction. But here's the Stoic interruption. What if the most powerful response isn't reaction but restraint? The ancient Greeks called this Apathea, a term often mislabeled as apathy, but in truth, it's the opposite. Where apathy is indifference, Apathea is lucid calm, the space between trigger and action where wisdom lies. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily in Rome's political chaos, writing, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." 2 millennia later, that same principle can disarm the modern outrage machine. Consider how outrage works. Someone posts something inflammatory, and like a spark to tinder, emotions ignite. But here's the secret Stoics knew: that post isn't forcing your reaction, it's revealing your readiness to react. Epictetus framed it sharply: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. This isn't about silencing your values, it's about choosing when and how they're expressed. Apathea asks, is this reaction purposeful or just habitual? Marcus' famous dictum, "The obstacle is the way," shines here. That infuriating comment or divisive news story isn't just a test of patience, it's raw material for practicing emotional sovereignty. Picture a scroll through your feed as a training ground. Each inflammatory post is an invitation to exercise apathia. Observe the heat rising, then, instead of fanning it, ask, what does reacting gain me? Does this align with who I choose to be? Your challenge today: go 12 hours without reacting to any external trigger in real time. No snarky replies, no frustrated sighs at slow walkers, no venting about bad drivers. Just observation. When the urge arises, borrow Marcus' question, what part of this is truly under my control? You'll discover something profound. Most triggers lose their grip when you refuse to tighten yours. This isn't passivity, it's precision. As Seneca wrote, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Try it. The next time outrage beckons, pause. Let the wave of emotion crash and recede. In that stillness, you'll find what the Stoics treasured most, not the absence of feeling, but the presence of choice. Imagine you're driving when another car swerves dangerously close, nearly clipping your bumper. Your pulse spikes, fingers grip the wheel, every instinct screams to roll down the window and yell. But what if, instead of seeing the driver as a faceless irritant, you pictured them as your sibling rushing to the hospital, or a single parent exhausted after a double shift? This pivot in perspective isn't just kindness, it's Stoic Sympathia in action. The profound recognition that every person you meet shares the same fundamental humanity as you. Marcus Aurelius scribbled reminders to himself like this: what injures the hive injures the bee. He didn't mean this poetically, he governed an empire with it. When frustrations flared in Rome's chaotic streets or council chambers, he'd pause and repeat, fellow citizens of the universe, not as empty rhetoric but as a mental reset. That reckless driver, they're facing battles you can't see, stress, grief, maybe sheer desperation. Sympathia doesn't excuse harmful actions, it dissolves the illusion that others exist merely as obstacles to your peace. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show that humanizing strangers, even imagining their childhood hobbies or fears, dramatically reduces aggression. The Stoics were onto something revolutionary. Your anger at that driver isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. By adding context, maybe they didn't see me. What if they're having the worst day of their life? You're not surrendering your right to safe roads, you're reclaiming your right to inner stability. Here's your challenge today. Pick one encounter with a stranger, a barrister, a commuter, even someone who cut you off in traffic. Before reacting, whisper to yourself, this person has loved someone, lost someone, and fears something just like me. That's sympathia at work, zooming out until the other becomes another thread in the same human tapestry. As Epictetus put it, what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about those things. Shift the judgment and the emotion follows. The next time irritation flares, try this subtle reframe. This isn't happening to me, it's happening near me. That reckless driver isn't targeting you, they're tangled in their own story. By holding space for that truth, you'll find something unexpected. The emotional heat fades, replaced by something far more durable: connection. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing Stoic breathing techniques with fresh insight and practical application. There's a reason every culture, from ancient warriors to modern meditators, returns to the same simple tool, the breath. The Stoics weren't exceptions. They saw breathing not just as biology, but as a lever for emotional control. Epictetus often reminded his students, first take a deep breath, and modern science now proves why. When stress hits, your breath quickens, signaling your nervous system to panic. But here's the twist: you can reverse engineer this process. Slow the breath and you slow the storm inside. Let's try the exact technique Roman Stoics used. Close your eyes just for a moment and follow this rhythm. Inhale deeply for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale smoothly for 4. That's it, no special apps, no elaborate rituals. This 4-count method appears in texts from Seneca to Marcus Aurelius, not as mystical practice but as physiological reset. Researchers at Yale and Harvard now confirm what the ancients knew. This pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system, dialing down cortisol and dialing up clarity. But there's a secret most people miss. The Stoics didn't just breathe to calm down, they used breath as a reminder of control. Each inhale was a chance to ask, what's mine to govern? Each exhale, a release of what wasn't. Try it now. Pair the 4-count breath with a single question: where can I direct my focus right now? Suddenly, breathing becomes more than stress relief. It's a realignment of agency. Here's your challenge. For the next 3 days, use this technique before reacting. When your inbox pings with a frustrating email, pause 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. When someone cuts you off in traffic, breathe first, then respond. You'll notice something fascinating. The space between trigger and action widens. As Seneca wrote, time heals what reason cannot, but sometimes all the time you need is 4 intentional seconds. Modern life moves fast, but your breath, that's an anchor you carry everywhere. No subscription required, no Wi-Fi needed, just the ancient, ever-present tool the Stoics knew was always within reach. Here's your next script segment, designed to flow seamlessly while introducing the Stoic pause with fresh perspective and actionable steps. Picture this: you're about to send a heated text, fingers flying, pulse racing. Then, just before hitting send, you freeze. That split-second hesitation, that's your Stoic pause in action. The ancient Greeks called it hypolepsis, the vital gap between what happens to you and how you choose to engage with it. Epictetus put it bluntly: don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say, wait for me a little while, impression. Let me see who you are. Modern psychology echoes this with the counting to 10 rule for anger management, but the Stoics took it further. It's not just about delaying reaction, it's about reclaiming sovereignty over your attention. Think of it like a mental airbag deploying under pressure. When your boss critiques your work or a stranger's comment stings, that pause, whether 10 seconds or 10 breaths, is your chance to ask, is this impression true? Is my reaction necessary? Here's how to engineer this in daily life. Start with your trigger environments. Slip a reminder into places where impulsivity thrives. A phone wallpaper with Marcus Aurelius words, "You have power over your mind." A post-it on your laptop reading, "Check your impressions," or even a bracelet worn as a tactile cue. These aren't just decorations, they're interrupters for autopilot reactions. Try this today. Pick one common stressor: a crowded elevator, a cluttered inbox, a family member's habit that grates on you. Before responding, physically pause. Set down your phone, step back from the screen, or take 3 deliberate breaths. In that space, you'll find what the Stoics treasured most: the freedom to choose your next move rather than letting emotion choose for you. The magic isn't in eliminating feelings, it's in that quiet moment where you decide whether to hand them the reins. As Seneca wrote, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not suppression, not denial, just a purposeful pause long enough to remember who's really in control. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing voluntary discomfort with fresh insight and practical relevance. What if comfort wasn't the goal, but the obstacle? The Stoics practiced something startling by modern standards: voluntary discomfort, not as punishment but as training. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who shaped Epictetus, put it plainly: how can someone accustomed to luxury become brave? They might as well train for a marathon by lounging on a couch. His point, resilience isn't built in the absence of hardship, it's forged through deliberate encounters with it. Think of emotional resilience like a muscle. You wouldn't expect to lift heavy weights without gradual training, yet we often assume we'll handle life's heaviest moments without practice. That's where voluntary discomfort rewrites the script. A cold shower isn't just about enduring the chill, it's about proving to yourself that discomfort won't break you. Skipping a meal safely isn't about hunger, it's about realizing you're stronger than your impulses. These small, controlled challenges prepare you for the uncontrollable ones. Modern research backs this. Studies on cold exposure show it reduces stress responses over time, while intermittent fasting has been linked to greater emotional regulation. The Stoics weren't masochists, they were tacticians. By occasionally stepping into discomfort, they inoculated themselves against panic when hardship arrived uninvited. As Seneca wrote, set aside certain days to eat only bread and water. Then poverty won't terrify you. Your challenge today, pick one tiny discomfort, no ice baths required. Take the stairs instead of the elevator, leave your phone behind for a 30-minute walk, drink your coffee black, notice the urge to avoid it, then lean in. That moment of resistance, that's where growth lies. Musonius Rufus taught that luxury makes the soul weak, but strength isn't found in suffering for its own sake. It's in the quiet confidence of knowing you've handled worse before and you can again. Start small. The goal isn't to hate comfort, it's to stop fearing its absence. Here's your next script segment, crafted with fresh perspective and engaging insight while flowing naturally from previous content. History remembers Cato the Younger not for his victories or his defeats, but for how little either could shake him. When Rome's civil war tore the Republic apart, when allies betrayed him and power slipped through his fingers, his response became legendary, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was so unchanged. While others panicked or begged, he dined with friends, debated philosophy, and famously went to sleep as the battle raged outside. What seemed like indifference was actually ironclad clarity, an unbroken commitment to principle, no matter how the world stormed around him. There's a reason the Stoics revered figures like Cato, not as flawless icons, but as lived proof that emotional mastery is possible even in chaos. Compare that to modern life, where a delayed delivery or a critical email can send us spiraling. The gap isn't in circumstance, it's in practice. Cato trained for crisis long before it arrived, steeling his mind daily with Stoic discipline, so that when true adversity struck, his calm wasn't luck, it was preparation. This isn't about mimicking ancient Romans, it's about recognizing that poise is a skill, and skills are learned by studying those who mastered them first. Think of it like athletic training. No runner becomes faster without watching elite sprinters, analyzing their form, then adapting it to their own stride. Emotional resilience works the same way. Here's your challenge. Identify one historical or modern figure, your personal Stoic hero whose composure inspires you. Maybe it's Marcus Aurelius steadying himself before battle, or James Stockdale surviving years as a POW by replaying Epictetus' teachings in his cell. Maybe it's a mentor or family member who faced hardship with quiet dignity. Next time stress surges, ask, how would they handle this? You're not borrowing their strength, you're awakening your own. The Stoics didn't worship their role models, they mined their lives for practical wisdom. As Seneca wrote, we need to set our sights on someone who can prove to us that stability is possible. Choose your guide, then let their example remind you, the calm you admire in others is already within you, waiting to be practiced. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing obstacle alchemy with fresh insights and practical steps. A colleague takes credit for your idea in a meeting. Your first instinct, anger, resentment, maybe even plotting how to even the score. but what if that exact situation held hidden fuel for your growth? The Stoics called this obstacle alchemy, the art of flipping setbacks into stepping stones. Marcus Aurelius left us the blueprint in his private writings. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At its core, it's not about denying frustration. It's about mining frustration for gold. Take that work conflict. Instead of dwelling on unfairness, ask, what does this reveal? Perhaps it's a nudge to communicate your ideas more assertively, or evidence that your contributions are valuable enough to steal. Maybe it's a chance to practice grace under fire, knowing that your reaction, not the slight itself, defines your reputation. Marcus trained himself to journal these discoveries daily, often ending entries with, "What did this teach me?" Not as a platitude, but as purposeful excavation. This mental pivot works because it shifts your role from victim to architect. Neuroscience confirms that reframing activates problem-solving regions of the brain, while rumination lights up stress centers. Ancient Stoics didn't have MRIs, but they knew this truth instinctively. When Seneca lost his wealth and was exiled to Corsica, he didn't just endure it, he wrote on the shortness of life, turning isolation into one of history's most timeless meditations on meaning. Here's your challenge. Pick one current obstacle, a delayed project, a strained relationship, even a nagging inconvenience. Grab paper, yes, physically write. It engages the brain differently, and answer two questions. 1, what's this preventing me from? And 2, what's this pushing me toward? You'll often find the problem is secretly redirecting you somewhere better. The next time life hands you a setback, remember, the obstacle isn't blocking your path, it's shaping it. As Marcus scribbled in the dark hours before battle, the blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Your circumstances might not change today, but your ability to transform them, that's already within your hands. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow naturally while introducing Seneca's nightly ritual with fresh perspective and practical guidance. As daylight fades and the noise of the world quiets, there's a practice the Stoics considered more valuable than any morning routine, a nightly reckoning with yourself. Seneca didn't end his days scrolling or stewing over tomorrow's tasks. He sat with a single candle and asked 3 deliberate questions, a ritual he called his evening review. Not to dwell on regrets, but to distill wisdom from the day's chaos. Imagine it as mental decluttering, sorting through emotional reactions like old receipts, keeping what serves you and tossing what doesn't. First question, what did I do well today? This isn't ego stroking, it's strategic reinforcement. Maybe you paused before snapping at a coworker or chose patience when traffic tested you. Seneca wrote, "The wise man examines himself daily," because success isn't just grand achievement, it's recognizing small victories that align with your values. The brain learns through repetition. Spotting these micro wins trains you to repeat them. Second, where did I react poorly? No shame here, just forensic curiosity. That text you sent in haste, the sigh of resentment when your partner forgot the groceries. The goal isn't self-flagellation, it's pattern recognition. Like a coach reviewing game footage, you're identifying leaks in your emotional armor to patch them tomorrow. Finally, how can I improve? Notice the wording. Not what will I fix, but how. A subtle shift from judgment to strategy. Perhaps it's setting a 5-minute pause rule before responding to frustrating emails, or visualizing your commute as patience practice. Seneca's journals show he treated each night as a debrief, not a trial. Try this tonight before sleep. Light a candle or use your phone's flashlight and spend 3 minutes on these questions. No elaborate writing, just honest reflection. As Seneca reminded Lucilius, the soul must be called to account every day. You'll find something surprising. The days feel less like a blur and more like deliberate steps forward. The Stoics didn't chase perfection, they chased progress, and in the quiet of evening, with just 3 questions, you'll start measuring your growth not by what happened to you, but by how you chose to meet it. Here's your next script segment, carefully crafted to flow naturally while exploring external validation with fresh insights and actionable Stoic wisdom. Scrolling through social media, we've all felt that tiny dopamine hit when a post gets more likes than expected, or that sinking disappointment when it flops. In ancient Rome, they didn't have Instagram, but they faced the same human craving, the hunger for external validation. Epictetus cut straight to the core. If someone told you that others spoke ill of you, don't defend yourself, just reply, "They must not know my other faults, or they'd have mentioned those too." His point wasn't self-deprecation, it was liberation. The Stoics saw praise and blame as 2 sides of the same slippery coin, both equally unreliable as measures of worth. Think of validation like weather. You wouldn't base your self-esteem on whether it rains today, yet we routinely let strangers' opinions through likes, comments, or sideways glances dictate our inner climate. Marcus Aurelius had a practice for this. He'd start each morning reminding himself that by evening he might meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful. Not to resent them, but to inoculate himself against needing their approval. When you expect indifference, you stop seeking applause. Here's the modern Stoic challenge: go 24 hours without seeking external validation. No fishing for compliments, no editing your words to please others, no checking how many hearts your message got. Instead, anchor yourself in what Epictetus called the citadel within, your own unshakable standards. When you post, ask, "Is this true to my values?" regardless of reactions. When you speak, ask, "Am I saying this to be heard or to be genuine?" The irony. Detaching from others' opinions doesn't make you indifferent, it makes you more authentic. Like a tree growing steadier when it stops bending to every wind, you'll find your confidence rooted deeper than the fickle soil of outside approval. As Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "What's the point of fearing disapproval if you crave applause from the same crowd?" Your turn. Today, let someone's criticism land without defense and their praise without celebration. Notice how light it feels when your worth isn't held hostage by either one. The Stoics knew a secret we often forget. Freedom isn't found in being loved or hated, but in being unmoved by both. Few things put life in clearer perspective than standing barefoot in the grass as autumn leaves swirl down around you. That vibrant red maple leaf now crunching underfoot was green and supple just weeks ago, and so it is with everything we cling to. The Stoics didn't see impermanence as morbid, they saw it as the ultimate clarifier. Memento Mori, remember you must die, wasn't about fear but focus. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." What sounds stark at first is actually liberation in disguise, an invitation to stop postponing what matters. Consider how differently we'd spend our days if we truly internalized that nothing lasts. The argument that felt earth-shattering this morning, fading like morning mist. The rejection letter sitting heavy in your inbox, as transient as winter's grip on a spring bud. Seasons don't resist change, they embody it. The oak tree doesn't weep when its acorns fall, it trusts the cycle. That's Stoic acceptance, recognizing that emotions, like leaves, have their season. Intensity isn't the enemy, but fixation is. Here's how to practice this today. Grab paper and write a letter to your future self, 6 months from now. Detail the worries keeping you awake tonight, the project deadline, the strained friendship, the what-ifs. Then seal it. When you reopen it months later, you'll experience first and what Marcus meant when he said, "Many of the anxieties that harass you are unimportant." How many have you forgotten already? The gift of impermanence isn't that nothing matters, it's that only some things truly do. That's the quiet power of Memento Mori, not a morbid end, but a compass for the time that remains. Summer fades to make room for harvest. Let today's troubles fall like leaves and watch what's evergreen in your life stand clearer than ever. Final segment. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple truth. Emotional mastery isn't about grand transformations. It's about small, daily choices. Of all the tools we've explored, 3 stand out for their immediate impact. First, the pause, that split-second hesitation before reacting. Epictetus called this hypoleposis, the art of interrogating your first impression. When frustration flares, train yourself to step back, even for just 3 breaths. Ask, is this worth my energy? That tiny gap between trigger and action is where freedom lies. Second, Stoic journaling, the practice Marcus Aurelius used to refine his mind. Each night, ask yourself, what did I handle well today? Where did I let emotions take the wheel? No elaborate entries needed, just honest reflection. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, these quiet moments strengthen your resilience. And third, Premeditatio Malorum, rehearsing challenges before they arrive. Picture the worst that could reasonably happen in your next stressful situation. Not to dwell on fear, but to disarm it. By walking through adversity in your mind, you strip it of its power to shock you in reality. These aren't just ancient theories, they're lifelines you can grab today. Pick one, just one, to practice for the next 7 days. Notice how even a single intentional shift begins to rewire your responses. As Epictetus reminded us, no man is free who is not master of himself. True freedom starts not with controlling the world around you, but with governing the world within you. If this journey into Stoic wisdom resonated with you, imagine what else awaits. Hit subscribe, and let's keep exploring timeless tools for modern resilience, one practice at a time. Until then, remember, the power to choose your next move is always yours.